Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome. I would like to welcome all the listeners to Healing Generations podcast hosted by the National Comadres Network. And we are so blessed to be here today. And we want to just thank you for joining us today because we know it's a giving of your time to join us and to journey with us in another conversation that's going to bring healing and words of refreshment. And just hope to have some fun as we come together today. This is Deborah Camarillo coming from the Bay Area, and I am so blessed to have a co-host, Maestra Susana Armijo, that joins me as we have the privilege to introduce our listeners to the beautiful, beautiful mujeres that are out there and their gifts and talents. Maestra Susie, how are you doing today?
Very good, Maestra. I'm just so excited. Here in Los Angeles, California, as always, just blessed with that beautiful Tatasol up there. So lucky, so fortunate about that. Just woke up this morning and really giving thanks for my health, actually. We have ups and downs, and some days are better than others, but I was just so grateful today was a good day. A lot of good breath, a lot of light, and a lot of excitement for our special guest today.
Yes, and we find ourselves in the month of love, huh?
Yes.
Right? I hope you got a fat heart there with a lot of good chocolate. The Cupid set the arrows where they needed to go, right?
Yeah.
And with that thought in mind, too, just not taking for granted, right? The love from Creator, that energy, the consistency that we are so blessed to have. But I'm very excited today. We have a new guest with us, and let's get on this conversation, right? So, Maestra, you want to share a little bit of our guest today?
I would be honored. It's always an honor. She's such a powerful mujer, such puro corazón, such a big heart. I've had the honor and the opportunity to walk with her for many years and just see her continue to grow and blossom and heal, and in spite of all of her challenges and struggles, just staying strong, staying grounded, following those values, living the values in spite of everything. And it's just so beautiful. I'm so honored to have her here today. She is Maria Figueroa from San Diego, Oceanside area of California. She is a maestra, a mamá, a poeta, a actress, daughter, sister, compañera, traditional danzante of Aztec dance, and she is my comadre as well. She's also a published author in various anthologies and is a professor of English composition, literature, and humanities at Miracosta College in Oceanside, California. In 2018, Maria was recognized by the Latino Book and Family Festival with their Excelencia del Maestro Award and recognized as Woman of the Year, Mujer of the Year. She's also the proud mother of her son Cuauhtemoc and her beautiful daughter Esperanza, and the loving partner to Manuel Velez. We're so honored to have you here with us today, Maria, and just really want to thank you for being so generous to join us and share your experiences, share your struggles, share your processes, things that you've had to endure in your own life. I know you have a lot of medicina, and I know that the listeners today are really going to gain a lot by anything that you have to share. Let's see if maybe we can start out and be willing to share a little bit about yourself, your familia, your background, where you come from, and who you're connected to at this time and the work that you do.
Oh, thank you, Tlazocamatli. Buenas tardes, maestras. And buenas tardes to our listeners. It's an honor to be here and to have been asked to share the space and share the palabra with you all. And I want to recognize, first of all, that I'm speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Pi Nation. I have the fortune of living very close to the element of water, and I want to recognize the coastal lands and the medicine that comes with that elemento, and that we stand in the center of these beautiful elements and this place we call Madre Tierra, Tonantzin, Pachamama, Turtle Island, all of that beauty. Y also a reconocer, you can't see this, but I can see them. I have an altar here next to me where I have my grandmothers and my great grandmothers. I often feel like I'm in a time in my life where I'm most connected through the ombligo of my own children and my mother and my great grandmothers before that. And so I just wish to speak their names. First, my mother, Maria Teresa Figueroa, her mother, Josefina Nava. I wish to speak the name of my paternal grandmother, Virginia Figueroa Correa, and her mother, Amelia Lopez Correa, and want to center them in this plática and understanding that I'm just a conduit, of their conocimiento and of their teachings today, because what comes through me today is the intention that they set before that, and the intentions before them. So muchas gracias for having me be here. I think, as you said, I'm a mother of two beautiful children, Cuauhtemoc Victorio Chacon and Esperanza Tonantzin Chacon, and they're in school right now. So I hope that everything is going well for them too. And in my kind of personal trajectory and of just life and of the many hats that we wear in this life as women, I feel like I'm standing in the most powerful position today and this morning and in this place in my life as a mother. And I want to recognize that because, I knew I wanted to be a mother at some point. I've participated in ceremony and, or as we say, the Red Road, and I prayed for a child, at the Tree of Life. And so my firstborn, Cuauhtemoc, came shortly thereafter. What I've learned is when you pray very specifically, you get what you want, and it's not like a selfish thing, but it's, I think, when you begin to sort of trust in spirit and you begin to trust in those ways. So talking to spirit and the grandmothers is a very powerful thing. And I've learned to really have faith and delve into that, and for that guidance. And so I'm now 46 years old. I'm in that cuarentona stage, as we say. And there's a lot of conocimiento and humor that comes around walking in your 40s. The Anglo-Saxon Western world will say you're over the hill when you're 40. A lot of our Mexicano ways say, ya estás cuarentona, se te pasó el tren, whatever it might be, But I think that in terms of this place right now, it's a very powerful time because I feel like I'm sort of in transition into like a place of deep wisdom and of deep humility as well. There's nothing more humbling than meeting your mother in your 40s. There's nothing more humbling than wanting to retreat to that little girl and say, I need help, or I need to cry, or I need to connect. And there's nothing more humbling than your own children reminding you of that as you are rearing them and raising them. So when you ask me like who comes with you or who you're with, right now I feel like I'm in the deepest and most profound relationship with my children and with my mother. And I'm very voy a chillar. I knew I was going to cry.
Yes.
And I called her before this and I said, I think I'm going to talk about you today. She says, ¿Por qué? She says, ¿Por qué? And I said, well, because, I feel like I have some things to share. And I think it was also a sort of a permiso, Do I have permiso? Do I have the bendición to speak?
Yes.
And I know I do. So that's who I come with today. And I have, again, the identity of and the role of a maestra, profesora in academia, which is a very important role and identity and place a path that I also walk very profoundly and intentionally, con gusto. And so living these lives and where they intersect and how they parallel, I hope is something that we can also, talk about today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. So it was really interesting to me when you brought the point of you're in your 40s and you said that Anglo-Saxon Western way of looking at things, right? You're over the hill. And actually, when you said over the hill, I was like, oh my God, I must be over the mountains then. If the 40's over the hill.
We're done, maestra.
Yeah, we're done. But then, the other part of cuarentena, right? You're like a old maid, I think is. And it's interesting to me because part of the teachings, and at least teachings that, I've had the blessing of learning, is that they say the 40's are la flor de la vida. And when I heard you talk about, wow, I feel like I'm at that place where I'm coming into that power. You're really defining that, and all that is intersected, right? Because my goodness, your resume is amazing. The things that you have accomplished at this point of 47 is amazing, right? And yet, with all that given, it was interesting to me that the heart spoke about the mother. And I think especially in this time where mothers have really been put to the task during this COVID time of being, teachers and Uber drivers. And I mean, a mother, have to still take care of the house and the wife and the partner. I mean, they've had to carry all this. How do you balance that? And what are those teachings that from your grandmothers and your mothers that have sustained you during this time, or I should say up to this time?
I want to acknowledge that beautiful metaphor of el flor de la vida, floreciendo en danza and en velación, en canción, in the cantos, we have a phrase that says que florezca la luz. And I think that that beautiful imagery of florecer into your light or into your being is very appropriate because at this time, rather than being sort of this stagnant, quote, old maid, sort of isolated, it is a very empowering place to be if we embrace it that way, if we have a community that nurtures that conocimiento, if we have the encouragement to florecer. And I have to say that, I've been very fortunate to have the community to support and to walk alongside with. I feel like I'm a reflection of the comadres that I surround myself with. I feel like that we're just a reflection of each other, and we're individuals in our homes, and we have our very kind of unique ways of living and of existing in this world. Pero como comunidad somos fuertes y somos un bouquet. Somos un bouquet de flores bellas, y some with more thorns, some with different colors and various walks of life, depending on the makeup of each flower. So that metaphor is very beautiful. But it is also a struggle, I think, for women that don't have that. Again, I said that I'm very fortunate because I think as a result of my different paths in both academia, in the danza world, in the artistic and creative world, you put those people together and you start forming your networks, your red, your alliances. But again, not all mujeres have that. And so the conciencia, I think, is how do we create more spaces for mujeres to have that experience? How do we remind, like, our young women, for example, that it's good to begin creating friendships, that are going to help you along the way, and to choose wisely, and to trust sort of their hearts and their intuitions, to recognize that they have a heart, that they have an intuition, and to be led in that way. So, coming back to the question of, like, how have I endured some of these or dealt with these challenges? And I would say, particularly, like, right now, in the case of, this pandemic that we're learning to navigate and exist within, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy because we were forced to be isolated, away from people, and just sort of exist in this little nucleus. And again, this is just, within my own, very intimate family. And it forced us to kind of examine, like, our personalities, our trigger points, our limitations. And sometimes the feelings were always at, like, right here, and I'm pointing to, like, right above my heart at the chest, where the feelings are about to go into the throat and come out, either whatever way, whether lovingly or not so lovingly, judgmentally, but they're there. And so how do we work through that? So I have a lot of empathy, for the moms, for the parents, for the children who perhaps don't have, again, like I said, the tools or the ways to kind of express and exist in ways that are safer, that are more supported. I see it often in my students, who disclose very intimate experiences in their own homes, and kind of talking to them through things. Sometimes they disclose it in their art projects. Sometimes they disclose it in their writing. It takes many forms, and I'm happy to create, like I said, that space for the plática, or for the plática to happen, to occur. And I also see it in my own children's friends, and the things that they share with me, or just in my own community, among friends and among those that I exist around in our neighborhood. So, son muchas cosas que considerar, but I think we definitely need to continue creating conciencia around expanding, like, our community, and welcoming, the embrace of the community, and also reciprocating that in ways that are healthy, because we can't sort of walk this path, and we can't survive. And I think we've known this, alone, individually. We never do things alone. We don't succeed, quote unquote, alone. We always bring our ancestors with you, those that are, like, right here. We always bring our communities. We always bring our homegirls with us. Always. We bring our children, both literally and figuratively. They're here and they're with us. I think this society wants us to believe that we do things alone, because it's like that myth of meritocracy. It's that myth of individualism. Capitalism wants us to do things individually. The self-made, there's a lot of self-made lingo going on today. I don't believe that. And it's a farce, I think, to teach people that, because we know that we're more successful when we survive and we thrive and we grow when we are a collective, when we are a community.
Beautiful. Gracias, Maria. You have so many gifts, and you've been blessed with so many maestros and maestras to walk alongside of you as you grow, continue to learn, and do your healing work. I know you being a maestra, a powerful maestra that you are, with your students, you've always made it an intentional priority to make sure that they know who they are, where they come from, who they're connected to, and what those values are. You're very intentional about grounding them that way. And as you said earlier, you have a lot of empathy. That's something I've seen in you for many, many years, and it's something I've really admired. Your empathy, your compassion, your passion, and your corazon. Uh, you know, because you do have so many gifts, música, danza, poetry, writing, all of those things. I'm wondering if you could share, what are some of those lessons that you have learned from your familia and your experiences along the way that have helped you with your own healing and that you like to incorporate in with your students in the classroom as well as with your own children? How do you use those gifts to really feed the soul of our children and those that you're connected to?
Thank you, Maestra Susie. And I have to say, you're one of my maestras. So yes, glad that you
Bless your heart.
acknowledged that we have many types of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that question, and I jotted down some ideas, some notes. My mom is a Libra. Her birthday's in October, and Libra, she's very kind of strategic. She's very
Mm-hmm.
strategic, and I didn't realize that until sort of I started learning more about just paying more attention, because when you grow up, tu mamá es tu mamá, your tías are your tías, your dads, you don't start thinking about them in these other ways.
Right.
And I was probably
Right.
just thinking more of like, how am I like my mom in some ways? So I started realizing she's strategic, she's careful, she's thoughtful. She also uses the phrase, a ver qué pasa, a lot, often, a ver qué
Mm.
pasa. And in my like intellectual, I need a plan, I need a agenda sort of way. Sometimes I get frustrated, and I've gotten frustrated because I'm like, no, ma, we need a plan. We need to think about some things. And it can be the most basic thing, like, are you gonna come over this weekend? And she's like, a ver qué
Mm-hmm.
pasa. And I'm like, but I need to know. Tengo que saber just to buy enough food and all the things. So, and then I reframed it and I said, a ver qué pasa is not about not planning. It's about faith. It's about having
Mm-hmm.
faith and also trusting. She trusts
Mm-hmm.
in herself. She trusts in her intuition, in her corazón. She trusts that she has like conocimiento. She has experience. So for her to stand in that, a ver qué pasa, es porque she knows que va a pasar. So she's just like, trust me. And
Right.
so I've embraced kind of this philosophy of a ver qué pasa, because it's also, I think, a philosophy of like surrendering. Let's surrender to the plan that's ahead of us. Let's surrender to the gratitude. When we acknowledge things with gratitude and we set a course again of like good intentions, then a ver qué pasa is going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't work out the way that we imagined it to be, then we adjust. We adjust. But that again comes from like a reminder that we need to work on like aligning our hearts, I think also with our minds. And this is something that I learned from you, you, Maestra Susie, is that corazón, razón, that heart and mind connection, that our heart also has reason, that we don't always need to be in our minds so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
academia has only taught me how to be in my mind, how to work
Mm-hmm.
through, argument, how to work through thought and be rational. I'm not going to start citing philosophers because I don't want to go there right now. But I will remind us that, we also have like Chicana Indigenas philosophers and cultural workers, and we have our abuelitas that knew this way. We have our moms, that they knew that alignment. They understood what that was and what that
Absolutely.
continues to be. And so So I share that with my students when I speak with them one-on-one, but also in the ways that I construct assignments, the literature, the text that we bring in. I love that I get to teach about stories. I get to teach testimonio. I'm so blessed to be able to activate the storytelling in my students, and so I have these mini assignments, for example, where I ask them to go ask an elder or their mom, or if they don't have their parents, if they don't have an elder, perhaps a neighbor or a distant relative, about a dicho. Like, what's a dicho that you grew up listening to? Or qué es un consejo? ¿Qué es un consejo que te han dado? And even for my like non-Chicano raza, indigenous minded students, non-students of color, they still get to share too. They're like, well, I grew up saying this, which, and it means this, and it comes from my, Irish grandma who used to make this and this and that. So there's just a lot, I think, of intercultural connections that we can make when we begin to look back and reach back and go to like those stories, those teachings that we traditionally don't bring into the quote academic space because they're not considered like fully, academic and traditional. But I really just enjoy, like I said, activating them in that way. And that creates a whole other environment, because I was sharing this with the colega a few days ago, also an Afro Mexicana with roots in Michoacan. And she says, you know what, Maria, like I never had a teacher that asked me about dichos. And if they would have asked me, my whole experience with school would have been different, And that's so validating. I said, thank you for saying that. And so, students, they laugh when they share these things. They're like, what? Like, I didn't hear it that way. I heard it this way. And then they start talking to each other. Sometimes they turn these, like I said, these can be like very short, quick things, but then they become assignments, but then they become sort of a platform for something greater, for something larger and more expansive. So in my classroom, I get very excited about the little things, that I do in the classroom, or sort of the literature that I bring in, the poetry that they experience. Many times our students don't enjoy reading. They don't enjoy writing because they don't see themselves reflected. They don't hear their stories, their narratives. But when you teach them a story about that has an abuelita that's doing something that's similar to their abuelita, or that has a character. For example, I love teaching a story called Death by a Deadly Donut, written by this awesome Chicana bilingual writer, Olga Garcia Echeverria. She's from LA. And it's a homeboy who sells donuts, and he turns the donuts into these Mexicano more like donuts, So it's these little shifts in the ways that we bring the stories to the students that in turn motivates them to tell their own story, to have a different relationship with the discipline that historically has marginalized them, if not made them completely invisible. So es muy bonito hacer eso, for them and with them. And I would have to say that it's made me a better teacher and a more excited, profesora. With my children, these lead with your heart, know who you are. That's key. That's fundamental.
Yes.
I mean, every day, we talk about this, and in different ways. It's not always I say lead with your heart and, know who you are, but it manifests itself in different ways. I think, for example, my son is 15. He'll be 16 in a couple months, and the teenage years are difficult. They're probably the most, you think that when they're breastfeeding or when they're walking around and you're afraid that they're gonna, drop the bookshelf on themselves, that's the most scary and difficult time. But right now, I think the teen years and the preteen years are challenging. And so with the pressures of their peers, with the pressures of social media, and just discovering who they are and giving them space to explore, but being mindful that they're connected to a legacy, that they're connected to an ancestry, that they're connected to, that they represent, our family, that they are the most important person to themselves first, and as a way of acknowledging their humanity first and foremost, because everyone else dehumanizes, social media dehumanizes and makes us very kind of distant from our humanity. Que se cuiden, que se sepan cuidar. And that for me has been very key right now in my parenting at the very basic level, to ensure that they know that they are important, and that they know that that creator sees them, and then in order for creator and the grandmothers to see them, they have to sort of see themselves. They have to honor themselves. Yeah. So muchas enseñanzas. And like I said earlier, there's nothing more humbling this time right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So fortunate your students. I'm just sitting here and just really absorbing everything that you're saying. And I was like, now, why couldn't I have had a maestra like her? God, it would have been so much less painful and less challenges and struggles if I had the understanding. That
you're absolutely right. You hear, and I'm not propping only myself up. I have other Chicana colegas, colleagues of color who are doing similar things because of these same reasons, because we didn't have necessarily that experience. So how do we return into the communities, or how do we work on this so that our students can see themselves and feel whole? And that's very much a healing journey too. It's a healing journey for our students, and it's a healing journey for us, because we're sort of piecing ourselves back together, when we are helping our students put themselves together.
yes.
I didn't imagine that I would feel this emotional about it, but it's real. It's very real like that. My comadre, Dr. Irene Lara, who I think is someone else you should probably invite on this podcast, she calls it a curandera scholar. And it's almost like in the academic setting, we become, when we're consciously doing this or unconsciously doing this healing work, we're like curandera scholars. I really love that. She's wonderful in creating these conceptos around that. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. And using something so simple as a dicho.
Yeah.
I remember growing up and, my mother not, I would say, like, why don't you like my friend? And she'd come out with, well, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. And I'd be like, what? Because the truth was that if that's who our friends are, then, it's going to rub off on us also, right? And so many teachings, right, were given through these little sayings, through the dichos.
Yes. Sí.
And I'm so grateful that I love that scholar curanderas. That's such a beautiful term. I'm gonna take that from you, Maria, and start to use that one.
That's my comadres. I have to attribute.
Okay.
Curandera scholar. Yes.
Curandera scholars. Yes. You were sharing, back again around motherhood, and for many of us, we haven't had that privilege, let's say, to birth children. I'm so blessed that, I have two children, Bernard and Vicky, that came from a relationship. And I've had, a relationship with them ever since they were small. But I didn't physically birth someone, even though they would say, they would look at me in that way as a mother. But there's many of our listeners that haven't had the opportunity to birth a child. And sometimes when we have these conversations around motherhood, there's an uncomfortable feeling because we don't really know, how to embrace that. And I would like to ask you, coming from a cultural perspective and tying it in all the way from La Madre Tierra to birthing a physical birth of a child, how would you bring that together and offer words to women that have not birthed children?
Thank you for that question and the reminder that mother and mothering is expansive. It's expansive and it's inclusive. And I think that's what's beautiful about the term mother. And, because I'm a thinker and a feeler, I had to reconnect with some of the literature that I've read around mothers and mothering. And I told my comadres that I was going to give them a lot of props here. And there's this beautiful anthology that I would encourage all of us to read. It's entitled Chicana Mother Work Anthology. It's very beautiful, and it's edited by Cecilia Caballero, Yvette Martinez Vu, Judith Perez Torres, Michelle Telles, and Cristina Vega. And the great Ana Castillo, who's a very important writer and scholar, she reminds us, she says, I'm going to read from her foreword. Mother may be broadly defined. When a person becomes the guardian of another human being, particularly an infant or a child who requires nurturing, in addition to protection and provisions, her whole perspective on society, in fact, on life's meaning shifts. There may or may not be such a thing as a mother's instinct. Not all women have claimed to feel it, but that your life's view changes when you assume the role of caretaker is arguably true. It was this analysis of the ancestry I inherited, the world culture I was part of, the immediate urgency of being a thinking mother that caused the writing of Towards the Mother Bond Principle. So I think what she suggests here, and to return to the earth and this idea of expanding it broadly and including other mothers, is that the tierra, when we're grounded on the tierra and we listen and we feel, then we are more connected again to our intuition, our spirit. And even if we don't, quote, biologically, physically birth a child from a womb, when we are connected to the pulse of the earth and the pulse of our community, then we're able to mother other people's children, because we understand that we have a collective responsibility to be caretakers of our community and of our children. And in part, we become caretakers of the land. And when the land is healed, when the land is taken care of and abundant, our communities are abundant and our communities learn to heal. So yes, I agree with you that we don't have to birth physically, a child to be a caregiver and caretaker and lover of that child and of the adult that they become. And even some who do, unfortunately, do not, because there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain and trauma in perhaps their own experiences of lack of caretaking. But imagine if that child, imagine if that human being had again a more broadly and expanded definition of care, of mothering, right? Of other mothers coming to take care of them, then perhaps that person or that child more specifically would not carry this trauma that in turn and unfortunately is often passed on and creates more generational trauma. But I want to return to this idea of other mothers. It's an idea I think that comes from our cultures that are rooted in like an earthly practice. Our traditions among folks of the African diaspora, people of our, again, indigenous North American or continental America, practices, people from, the lands of the East, even, pagan Europeans, like everything was ritualized around La Tierra. And somehow we forgot. We forgot because colonization and imperialism happened. And that was very much motivated by white kind of hetero patriarchy and greed, and Christianity to a certain degree as well, that was all conflated in these ideals of expansion and of conquering and whatnot. So these traditions that were foreign disrupted our ways of life. And so they disrupted like the conocimientos and the tradiciones that we had around how to be community and how to honor motherhood and how to honor children. So when we are working on returning to these ways, it's fundamental that we center children and that we center women and that in turn center mothers, and the women and women elders, like they have taught us, that when we examine like matriarchal cultures, usually matriarchal cultures are the healthiest cultures, around. And again, that comes back to how do we treat and walk on this earth? How do we treat La Tierra and how do we walk on this earth? We should walk on it gently. We should walk on it con buenas intenciones, And I want to also honor my sister. My sister's my baby sister. Her name is Marisol Figueroa. She's my kid's tia. And while she's 12 years younger than me, she's one of the strongest, human beings that I know. Mm-hmm. And she's not a mother, but damn, if I had to trust my children to anyone, it would be her. Mm-hmm. It would be her after my own mother and after their father, She serves a very important role in their life. And she serves a very important role in my life. And she's my younger sister. She's my baby sister. I mean, I was holding her. She was on my hip when I was 12, 13 years old. And now I feel like there's this return. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's room for the many mothers. Yes. There's room for the many mothers, and we need more. We definitely need more. Because sometimes, as we say, the children are not okay, the mothers are not okay. But they're going to be all right. Yes. They're going to be all right.
Siempre. Always.
Yeah.
Always. Thank you, Maria. So powerful, so heartfelt, and so true. So true. It just took me back to growing up. I was 7 when my mother began struggling with mental illness, from her own abuse from her father and my father. She's a single mother trying to raise the 3 of us, my 2 brothers, myself. And I, she wasn't available emotionally. She's just medicated and just trying to get through every day the best that she could. The beautiful thing is I never had a doubt that she didn't love me or want to take care of me in spite of it all. Our hearts were always connected. That was never a doubt, even though she couldn't be there emotionally for me. But it was all the other single mothers of my girlfriends in the neighborhood who were so generous to step up and accept me as one of their own. Mm-hmm. They loved me. They called me their daughter. Mm-hmm. They introduced me as their daughter. They fed me. They corrected me when I needed it. They supported me in every way, along with my tias and even my mom's best friends, her comadres, that were so willing to. And they had their own children. I remember one of her best friends had 5 children, and then she even accepted me in her home to take care of me while my mom was trying to recover. So all the children belong to us. I've always
Yes.
believed that was the lesson that I learned, even though they're not her physical maternal mother. We're mother to all the children. And of course, back in that time when I didn't know who to turn to or didn't feel comfortable to ask for what I needed or what I wanted, it was always my connection to Madrecita del Cielo, la Virgencita, the Mother Earth, Tonantzin. Always trying to follow her examples of unconditional love, of compassion, her gentle strength. She was strong, that she had gentleness about it. It wasn't a forceful strength. It came with so much love and compassion, her radical faith, all of those values that she was so blessed to give to all of us, to all her children that walk the earth. So thank you for reminding. I hope the mothers out there, all our mujeres, can embrace that
Yes.
and know that we all carry that medicine to any child that Creator puts in our path. Thank you, Maria.
Yes. And, it's been such a wonderful conversation. And I just want to thank you for sharing your heart, And so, listeners, when there have been those times of silence, it's because of the tears that have flowed, because this is a heart conversation. And it's getting close towards the end. But one of your other gifts is as a writer poet. And so I'm going to ask you, would you please do us the honor of sharing with us a poem of your choice?
Oh, that would be so wonderful. That's a great question, Maestra. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I will share because, the Spirit speaks in many ways. And so our hearts speak, yes, through words, through movement, through tears, but also through the creative composition of imagery. And so I'm going to share this piece entitled Ancestral Genesis. Ancestral Genesis. In the beginning, there was a pot of beans, frijoles de la olla, cafecito, sage, and copal offerings, candles lit, and abuelita sitting at the edge of the altar, ready to listen, ready to amplify the spiritual chisme. They swing their legs back and forth, eagerly awaiting, pressing the palms of their hands into the end of the altar, leaning their shoulders towards you just a tad. Every time there was a moment of pause, they turned to look at each other without words. Only foreheads become the bulletin board of their inner pensamientos. Esta tiene mucho susto, they say. They know. In the beginning, there was a bush of romero and aromatic ruda, a tree of pirul, lush in its offering, a bottle of potent agua florida y un huevo, all awaiting to do their collective work, all awaiting to act according to the way las abuelitas instructed us to do and to be. La señora walks before me, her petite silhouette outlined by the brightness of the setting sun over the ocean in an Ensenada home. She places the huevo at my forehead, then begins to barrer, and I am familiar with this practice, with this way, because my own abuelita has done this to me and to my cousins. My ama is also an expert. Today, my ama instructs my 15-year-old 6-foot son to lie in front of the altar, his long arms out. Elongated legs create paths towards las abuelitas who sit at the edge of the altar, eagerly swinging their legs in glee, awaiting to assist in the release of his susto, of his heartache. In the beginning, there was, I remember, the sounds of my mother's voice, her speak, her murmurs, her suspiros of bewilderment and angst, of her not knowing how her life would end up. She takes an old rosary. Its fading red beads are now a soft rose hue, and they predictively maneuver through her fingertips upon completion of an Ave Maria y un Padre Nuestro. Gracias.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness. You're
Wow.
right that the ancestors do continue to speak.
Beautiful.
I could just hear all your abuelitas just flowing through your voice right now in those words. So powerful. I could envision the whole story. It should be a little movie, all animated.
Can you
Thank
imagine the
you.
abuelita sitting at the edge of the altar like, oh, there's going to be good chisme today.
Yeah, I want to be a fly on the wall. Oh, thank you. So honored to hear those beautiful words. Maria, thank you for being so willing to
Gracias a
share.
ustedes.
To
Tlazo
share.
Camatli. Thank you.
And as we do come to the end, I would always wish we had more time with all of our guests. But we're not going to let you go until out of all the advice you've already shared. But what is maybe one or two consejos that have been helpful for you on your journey that you feel that you would want to keep alive in your own children and pass on to the future generations to come that have helped you and that you feel that are important that we maintain those consejos, if you will.
Thank you. I would say, we often use the expression cuídate. I often sign off an email, a notita, or a phone call when I say, okay, pues cuídate, take care. And I think that's really important. Like, we need to nurture with intention. We need to care for ourselves with intention, with careful observation, to be gentle. And we can do this in different ways. We've learned that if our society and our political system or our economic system is not going to take care of us, and we need to like self-empower and find ways to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, that mind, body, spirit. And so doing some breathing, some breathing exercises, taking walks, singing, dancing, even if it's by ourselves, being by the water, taking trips to the water if we can. It's a little cold right now. The Pacific is a bit cold, but if we can dip our toes, I think that's really important too. Just connecting, bringing a little bit of that water to our heart and to our mind, to our foreheads, almost as a bendición, as a blessing of that element, that strong element. And I also say stay rooted. And I learned about, I think staying rooted in to the earth, staying connected, but also rooted in our conocimientos and our traditions and our tradiciones. And if we have awareness of that, like amplify them. We need to amplify them. Now's the time. Si no, se van a perder. They're going to evaporate and dissipate. And how do we keep them close? And so every day I remind my kids, stay rooted, stay connected, stay spiritual. And we go to the altar every morning and we greet the ancestors, and we also ask for the permiso to go on to the day. It's like that bendición that our parents gave us, maybe, or that our elder gave us, and so that's how we can stay rooted, or staying rooted by making a pot of beans, or cooking the comida that, if you can, and if you remember or ask, cooking the comida that nurtures you, like calabacitas, or if you know how to make pozole, good, or un chilito, or just warming up a tortilla and letting it sit on the comal, for a minute. These practices, I think, that are small but very big in their intention, and awaken our senses and awaken our hearts to keep us and maintain us rooted. That's what I would offer today.
Oh,
Mhm.
Thank
gracias.
you.
Gracias, comadre.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you, Maria Figueroa. And by the way, that is my mother's maiden name. So you're probably my prima out there somewhere
I'm
or
sure.
whatever.
Hey,
And
prima!
so,
Yay, un abrazo.
yes. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank all of our listeners that have chosen to be with us on this journey. I know without a shadow of a doubt that you have been blessed. There have been those words that have penetrated your heart and brought you the healing that you needed for today. Because we know there is no accidents, there's no coincidences. So thank you so much for joining us today. And as we sign off, I'll say bendiciones for the rest of the week. This is Deborah Camarillo signing off from the Bay Area. And to Maestra.
Susana Armijo here in Los Angeles. Just once again feeling so grateful to Creator and ancestors. Thank you, Maria. Your passion, your fire, your compassion, your corazon. May God continue to bless all of those qualities and with many more years of life and give me a lot of hope for our children of the future. Gracias.
Gracias.
And please look us up. You could find our webpage, National Compadres Network, and just click on the box that says the National Comadres Network. And there you could find our podcast, the services that the Women's Department does for the National Compadres Network. And so we're there on the social media. So we welcome your finding us there. And I know that you'll be excited to find all the different tools there that we offer. So with that, bendiciones.
Bendiciones. Adelante.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.